morning, everybody. Thank you for participating. My name is Eric Dysart. I'm with the City of Pasadena. I work in the city manager's office and I manage economic development. Today we're here to try and get information out to the business community. We know that there have been lots of changes and ultimately we want to be in a position to help facilitate information as it comes through to our office. And we recognize that it's a very difficult time from a health and an economic perspective. But with the news highlights at the national and the state level, this morning we really want to focus on the local reality. And I want to remind everyone that even though Governor Newsom will announce a wide range of COVID updates, there's still the burden of making sure that individual counties and health departments can evaluate what's happening in their jurisdiction and make sure that the infection rates and deaths are on the trend that we would like to see. But unfortunately, in Los Angeles, even though we have been able to avoid going past the capacity of our local hospitals, we still have an infection rate that is significant. And as we were planning this meeting today, we had hoped to have better news and even announced some broader opening up of the local economy. But we've have to adjust a little bit in our thinking as well. And we're here to just share the updates from various departments here at the City of Pasadena. So we'll be sharing information on the revised health order, and there's still significant stay-at-home restrictions, but there's a new opening up of some limited retail and continuation of restaurant operations from a customer ordering online and phone orders, and a new kind of outline for picking up at the curbside. So we're going to move forward and introduce a few other staff members. You'll hear from Rachel Janbeck, who is from our health department, and then Joaquin Sikas from transportation, and Yanni Wu-Coleman from public works, and then we'll finish it off from economic development and go to some questions from those participating. So with that, I'll have Rachel go forward with her summary.
All right, hello everyone. Right now, the City of Pasadena is cautiously moving through stage 2 of the state's reopening plan. All business types that are open to operate at this time, they fall into one of two categories. Either they are categorized as essential, and that's probably because they sell food, or they're categorized as low risk. Grocery stores remain open, and restaurants continue to operate for takeout and for delivery only. At this time, nothing is changing with respect to these business types, but we are introducing revised guidance that provides additional information for restaurants on managing customers who may end up crowding public sidewalks or blocking traffic with their vehicles. Beginning last Friday, some retailers, including florists, clothing stores, and sporting goods stores, were able to reopen for curbside pickup only. And effective yesterday, that list was expanded to include all retailers that are able to conduct business online or by phone, and then provide the pre-ordered goods by delivery or curbside pickup. Additionally, some service businesses, including dog groomers and boarding facilities and full-service car washes, may now also resume operation. Next slide, please. For each business type referenced, the Public Health Department has created an industry-specific guidance document with public health protocols that must be implemented prior to reopening. Each business needs to complete the checklist, including the guidance included with the guidance document, implement daily employee wellness screenings, social distancing measures, and disinfection procedures, distribute a copy of the completed checklist to each employee, and post that checklist at the entrance of the business. Some of the items that are reviewed in the guidance document, I'm going to go over now. Businesses are advised to limit on-site staffing to only the minimum number of employees necessary. Employees who can work remotely should continue to work remotely. Employees should be grouped into teams and then consistently scheduled on shifts together. If an employee tests positive for coronavirus, all employees exposed to that staff person could be quarantined for 14 days. Keeping the team separate ensures you will still be able to operate. Sick employees must stay home. If an employee reports symptoms of illness, they must stay home for at least 10 days or for 3 more days after their fever ends, whichever is longer. You are required to screen employees daily for symptoms of illness. Symptoms include a fever of 100 degrees or above, a cough, shortness of breath or difficulty breathing, sore throat, chills, repeated shaking with chills, headache, muscle pain, or a new loss of taste or smell. Now, screening can be completed from home prior to the shift. It can be completed verbally or in writing when the employee arrives to work, or it can even be completed with the use of technology such as an app. Employers are not required to take temperatures of staff, but some are asking staff to take their own temperature at home before coming to work. I strongly recommend that you maintain a log of your health screening activity. Business operators are required to allow extra time for employees to wash their hands frequently and to provide hand sanitizer for employees and, if applicable, for customers also. Assign an employee to check hand washing sinks throughout the day to ensure that there is an adequate amount of soap and paper towels available. I think by now, most businesses are aware that cloth face coverings must be worn by both employees and customers. There are some exceptions. Face coverings are optional for employees that work alone or in an office or cubicle, but they must be worn if that employee leaves their work area. Face coverings should not be worn by an individual who has a chronic respiratory condition or other medical condition that makes use of the mask hazardous. Also, children should only wear a face covering with adult supervision, and children under 2 should not wear a face covering. To be effective, face coverings must fit snugly and cover both the nose and the mouth. It is important that employees wear their face coverings properly, and we ask that employees only eat and drink when they're on a break to ensure that the face covering is not removed while they are working in close proximity to others. Speaking of breaks, when on a break, employees should physically distance from each other. Space out furniture in the break room and stagger employee break times when possible. Encourage employees to take their break outside and away from others, perhaps to take a walk. If one of your employees has a positive coronavirus test or is diagnosed by a doctor and was at work while feeling ill or anytime during the 2 days before, you are required to contact the Pasadena Public Health Department immediately. The number is 626-744-6089. One of our public health nurses will ask a series of questions to determine if other staff need to self-isolate or quarantine. Additionally, someone from environmental health will provide disinfection guidance for you to follow in order to get operating again. We also ask that you do what you can to protect persons who are more likely to experience severe symptoms of COVID by designated certain hours for vulnerable populations if possible. Now, a few specific protocols we have listed on our checklists. If you are a curbside operation, we ask that you explain the pickup or drop-off process to your customers in advance. Tell them where to park. Tell them if they should call when they arrive. Tell them that they should wear a mask. And let them know where to line up if that applies. If you are operating a takeout, delivery, or curbside operation, do what you can to offer a no-contact payment option for customers. Exchange packaged food or goods by placing the item on a counter and taking a step back prior to instructing your customer to approach to get the item. If placing items into a customer's vehicle, do not touch the door handle or the trunk latch, but instead ask the customer to open the trunk remotely or to roll down a window in an unoccupied portion of the car, and then set the items down without leaning in. In the business, prop doors open where possible to reduce touching of door handles. In customer waiting areas, use tape and mark the ground or sidewalk to indicate where customers should stand or line up. Customers should always maintain 6 feet of distance from each other and from other employees. and from employees, except for very brief instances where they must move closer to make a payment or pick up goods. When possible, stagger customer appointments or pickup times to reduce crowding. If you have two entrances, control the flow of customers and reduce crowding by designating one entrance for customers to enter and the other for customers to exit. Disinfect frequently touched surfaces. This includes doorknobs, light switches, bathroom fixtures, trash cans, railings and banisters, and phones. It also includes protective plastic barriers, counters, payment systems, PIN pads, and touch screens. Instruct employees not to share items like pens. Now, if you are a dog grooming operation, you may resume operation, but only by appointment and only by curbside. This means that our four-legged customers may enter the business, but the human customer remains outside. Customers should call when they arrive and remain in the car until an employee comes out to retrieve the dog. And if dog owners are sick, appointments should be canceled or postponed. If you are a car wash establishment, you may resume operation, but each vehicle must be ventilated prior to employees entering the vehicle to vacuum or detail. This means rolling down the windows and opening the doors and blowing air through the vehicle. The number of employees that can work inside the vehicle must be limited to only one. And after vacuuming and cleaning equipment should be cleaned and sanitized. All of this information, as well as FAQs regarding our face coverings and the Safer at Home order, can be found on our website, and I believe the link will be shared. Thank you.
I'd like to remind everyone, before we go to Joaquin, I'd like to remind everyone to think about any questions you might have and go to the Zoom feature of providing a comment, and we'll be going through those and offering up those questions at the end of this this conference. So with that, Joaquin, do you want to start your segment?
Yes, thank you. Next slide, please.
Just go ahead and present your slide, and we're going to go to questions after.
Great, thank you. Again, Joaquin Sicas from the Transportation Department, and I'd like to cover some of the things that the city is doing for on-street and off-street parking to facilitate curbside pickup for restaurants and retail businesses. So to facilitate access for the reopening of restaurants and retail businesses using curbside pickup, the department implemented modifications available to on-street parking citywide and off-street parking in select city-owned garages. On March 18th, 2020, the Transportation Department issued a parking policy modification, which in part suspended the payment of meters at all curbside parking spaces and temporarily converted all of the metered parking spaces to 20-minute parking to facilitate the delivery of food and items from restaurants. While some businesses have parking garages or parking lots, many retail businesses rely on curbside on-street parking for their customers. The purpose of the 20-minute parking is to allow parking turnover and create pickup areas along block frontages. While we began in the Central Business District with all of the locations that had metered parking, we extended the parking postings on May 8th to additional retail corridors, including Colorado Boulevard from Lake to Catalina, Colorado Boulevard from Michigan Avenue to Holliston Avenue, and Colorado Boulevard from Hill Avenue to Allen Avenue. In addition to the corridors that we've already posted for 20-minute parking, the city is taking requests from businesses or retail businesses or restaurants to post 20-minute parking anywhere that there's an existing parking space that has a longer term parking limit, where the restaurant or the retail business would like a short-term parking to facilitate the movement of vehicles and that pickup of goods. To request 20-minute parking, you can call the Citizen Service Center at 626-744-7311 or use the online resources for the Citizen Service Center to request parking to be posted as 20 minutes. In addition to the on-street parking, we've also modified the parking regulations at various garages. These garages were selected due to the proximity of the retail facilities that did not have any available on-street parking. The three garages are the Paseo garage, the Los Robles garage, and the Marengo garage. And what we've done is we're providing a 20-minute grace period for free parking in the garages with no validation required. This allows for customers to park in the garage, pick up their goods, and exit the garage without needing a validation to those garages. Also, in addition to that, the on-street parking lots that are city-owned facilities are also not collecting meter fees at this time. So that's what the Transportation Department has done to facilitate access to the various retail businesses and restaurants. And we'll be happy to take questions after the presentation.
Thank you, Joaquin. All right, with that, we'll go to Yanni from Public Works. Oh, so Yanni's here for a question, so thank you, Yanni. So let me go through a few items from economic development. Let me, while we get our slides. One more slide, right?
Go back before the DOT.
Okay, so hold on as we,
There we go.
so here you go, Yanni, sorry about that.
Good morning, everyone. This is
Yanni,
Yanni.
would you mind just walking through your bullet points? That would be appreciated.
Okay, this is Yanni Wu Bowman from Department of Public Works. Thank you for joining us this morning. The use of public sidewalk for the purpose of pedestrian, either moving, queuing, or temporarily standing in front of a store is absolutely no different from any other regular activities. So as long as the most important aspect is maintaining social distancing per the CDC requirements, and also maintaining the minimum ADA, which stands for American with Disability Standards, of 4 feet. That is the main goal based on both ADA and also social distancing. Social distancing of 6 feet, I believe everybody is aware of that. And the ADA clearance is 4 feet minimum. If any retail stores or restaurants needs to put tape markings on the sidewalk to delineate that kind of distance, the recommended materials is either painter's tape or gaffer's tape. They are easily available for purchase either from Home Depot or online, Amazon or Walmart. And the line queuing for the customers should be parallel to the building storefront and also abutting the building. They should not be perpendicular away from the building or along the curbside. So that will leave the maximum clearance space for other walking pedestrians who are not waiting in line to either enter a store or pick up something from the restaurant or retail store. If there is a need to place any advertising stands or small furniture to facilitate the handling of foods or products, again, it's being recommended that this kind of furniture be placed as close to the building frontage as possible so as to minimize the obstruction for the clearance for other pedestrians. The business owners and or the property owners of that store frontage is responsible to maintain the sidewalk in a clean and safe condition. The tape markings or any other type of markings used on the sidewalk, it should be make sure that they are on in a non-slip material, and also after it's peeled off, it doesn't leave any residue on the sidewalk. Of course, it should not be presenting any kind of tripping hazard. If it comes loose, then the business owners or the property owners should be diligent to replace it and secure it, so as not to present any tripping hazard. All of the above queuing and or tape markings or small stand and furniture, they do not require any special or additional permits from the city, as long as the social distancing and the ADA minimum clearance of 4 feet is maintained. If there is any further questions, I can be reached either by email or phone, or you can go to the Public Works website and go to our general email address and send the questions to us. But I'll be open for further questions later in this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Yanni. So I'll move to just a few economic development points. So we want to make the participants aware that the city is also putting together some resources. We have already in place a restaurant takeout directory that's been successful. We encourage local restaurants to sign themselves up. So we've had over 21,000 page views and 250 restaurants that are listed already. But please pay attention to this resource, and the website link here is going to be displayed again as we finish up. Next slide. We also have had success in working with the Visitors Bureau and giving people staying at home with something to look at. So we have had a virtual connection to our museums and other kind of venues in Pasadena. So I would encourage people to take a look at that, just if you have something to add to that directory. We would appreciate more participation from Pasadena. Next slide. And we're now broadening that out to a retail directory. We want to make sure that as people are looking at what's open and they're coming to the city's website, that we are as clear as possible on what local retailers are here, open, and eager to work with the customers. So if you look at this website here, on the Pasadena website, the retail directory sign-up page, please take a look at that. And again, this is in participation with a variety of local business groups, the local business improvement districts of Old Pasadena, South Lake, and Playhouse Village, Chamber of Commerce, Visitors Bureau. So all great partners here in Pasadena for our business community. And then we have a small business development center on Foothill that, of course, we can't visit right now, but it's still an online resource in Pasadena. They're providing webinars on a whole bunch of state, federal programs, and with a little bit more emphasis now on e-commerce and social media. So as businesses that have been more reliant on just storefront connections with their customers, it's another resource to help the business community get ramped up for more of the e-commerce and kind of omni-channel retail, which is the combination of e-commerce and bricks and mortar. So take a look at that as well. So with that, we're going to transition to a set of questions. Next slide, please. We're going to keep this up as just a reference guide, but we're going to open it up for questions. Michelle Garrett is behind me. She is one of the pivotal team members in the Economic Development Office, along with Ruth Martinez and a set of other staff members that are standing by right now to help answer questions that might queue up for those who are participating on the webinar today. So is there a first question?
We do. We have quite a few questions for our panelists today. The first question is directed towards the health department. What are the requirements for restaurants to resume dine-in operation?
Hi, thank you. That's a really good question. I know it's a question that's on a lot of people's minds right now. Right now, statewide, on-site dining in restaurants is not allowed. And the city of Pasadena is not in a position, nor is LA County in a position to move ahead of the state as far as reopening. We are moving with the state at this time. There are a small number of counties in northern rural California that have seen 0 coronavirus cases or less than 10. And those counties have no deaths for the last 14 days, and they've met criteria that was set by the state in order to request permission to move ahead of the state in the reopening process. And so they have submitted that request in writing to the state, and the state is reviewing it. But for the majority of the state and a majority of the 58 counties, we are moving with the state. And the state just hasn't opened it yet, and the state hasn't been clear when that will happen. I do recommend that anybody who's owning a restaurant, eager to get to that point, start doing the preparation work necessary in order to do so. So think about how you might reconfigure your dining room to make more space, because you will be required to put 6 feet of distance between each dining table. Think about some of the changes that you'll be making, and you can go ahead and start implementing them or planning for that now.
Thank you, Rachel. The next question, I'll throw it out to the group. Can furniture stores with large showrooms be treated similarly to car dealers and allow patrons to enter individually to view furniture so long as safety protocols are followed?
Yeah, I don't think that's open yet, but Rachel, you might have specific information on that.
Right now, that is also not allowed in the governor's reopening for the current step that we're in. All business must be done exterior of the building. So I think that's the difference is that it's in an enclosed facility. The way that furniture stores may operate is to display their goods online, make the sale virtually, and then deliver, or somebody can come to the store and pick up, but they're not able to enter the store.
Oh, well, that's an example of a great question and something that has a kind of a common sense kind of thought behind it. And we're giving you the response that, again, is a combination of what the state and county have mandated. But we are very eager to hear your ideas when it comes to some more specific types of examples on how we might be able to take a creative approach to some of these things. So please don't hesitate to ask those types of questions.
There was a second part to that question. Can personal trainers who meet one-on-one with clients be allowed to reopen if they follow strict safety protocols, clean equipment after each use, maintain social distancing, and mask requirements?
I can answer that one as well. And I want to say, I appreciate the questions. I think that hearing about the different business types and ideas for how to operate safely is good, and it helps kind of plant a seed and give us an idea of where we're headed next. For now, the state order is that there may be no gatherings with anyone outside of your household. So based on that and the way that our local order mirrors the state order, that would not be allowed.
Rachel, because we have our own health director, can we do something different than the state in this regard? I think this is something that you need to address. I think it's really important that the community hears it.
Okay. The health director is not able to do something that's less restrictive than the state. The state has provided a list of parameters that the local jurisdiction could meet in order to submit a written request to be less restrictive than the state. But right now we don't meet those parameters here because of our case count. Our case count is too high. And so even if Dr. Go wanted to submit that request, we wouldn't qualify. We are where we are, and we are
right
at this time required to follow the governor's order.
And right, Rachel, because I think it feels, as Eric said, so it's common sense that because Costco can be open, or Target, or grocery store, why can't someone go into a furniture store? And it sounds like the short answer is just very technical. The state hasn't allowed that to be one of the allowed uses, and it's, while maybe doesn't make sense, it's just, but that's what the state law is, and we're following state law.
I mean, it's true. We are following the state law, and we are mandated to do so. A line had to be drawn somewhere, and Costco is categorized as essential because they sell food.
the next question, and this one's directed towards DOT. Can we request yellow pickup only zones?
Yellow pickup only commercial loading zones can be requested. However, what we're asking, if the intent of the pickup zone is for pickup of goods, the 20-minute parking signs provide the same ability for people to pick up in a 20-minute zone versus a yellow curb. The concern with the yellow curbs is that they are more restrictive to commercial vehicles and as opposed to just general pickup from customers that don't have commercial vehicles. And the way our ordinance is written, after 6 p.m. they become open parking. So if you have, say, a restaurant or somebody that wants to have that pickup after 6 p.m., the 20-minute parking allows more flexibility and better use. But any yellow curb that's requested for commercial deliveries can be requested through the same CSC site, and we can look at those individually separately.
I'd like to clarify that based on Joaquin's backdrop, there's no official endorsement by the City of Pasadena for any sports team that might be visible there. So, next question.
Sure. Can we expand dining to the parade blue line?
Joaquin, that might be another one for you. So I'll start. So no, I mean, we've been thinking about ways to expand dining opportunities in the city, and using the sidewalk and portions of the street have been and are being considered. But as of now, that is not something we're ready to communicate to the business. Is that, yeah.
I could add that we are definitely looking into options for different types of allowing dining or areas for people to dine. But in this current phase, without the restaurants being open, we're not ready to move into that next level. And we're looking at options and how it would impact the businesses as well, because any on-street facilities would then remove parking or loading. So there's a balancing act, so we will take that into consideration.
So we have a question, where do music schools fall within the phases? This particular business does one-on-one teaching with no contact, and their rooms are large enough to accommodate much more than 6 feet distance teacher and student. This person hasn't seen private tutoring establishments mentioned within the phases and is looking for clarity.
So that's assuming that there's no retail activity, but just as more of a public improve or a personal improvement service, which I anticipate, Rachel, is not permitted yet as far as an official in-store activity.
That's correct. And some of these questions are things that the health officials are still working out. I think that they'll probably fall somewhere close to when schools are able to reopen, and there's still some wiggle room there. They are looking forward at the future phases, and right now there hasn't been a clear delineation regarding many of the businesses, but it's really good to hear about some of the businesses that aren't being explicitly called out so that we can make sure and include them.
This one is directed to the health department. Could you please describe contactless payment?
Oh, sure. So some of our operators have transitioned to taking payments over the phone or online before the customer comes to pick up the order. And then some of them have changed their payment system at the pickup counter. For example, restaurants to accept Apple Pay in a manner that's touchless, where they don't have to enter a PIN code afterwards. And so they just hover their phone over to make the payment. Some of our service businesses, like dog groomers, for example, we're expecting them to at sometimes return the dog to the human customer and then call them while they're sitting in their car to get their credit card information, for example, over the phone while they're still there, but not face-to-face. So there's a lot of options, and I'm seeing people be very creative in that.
Great. We've had a lot of questions come in related to the reopening of dining rooms at restaurants for in-person dining. Maybe you could speak to, and I know you've done it already, but maybe elaborate on what sort of things these restaurants should preemptively be doing before they reopen.
Okay. The state put out some template guidance just yesterday, and it's a checklist for restaurants that fall into one of the counties that's been given permission by the state to move ahead of the state with the reopening process. And so I'm happy to share it as a template just to get people to start thinking about what they can prepare for when we do reach a point here in LA County where we'll be moving. Is there a way for me to share that after the meeting?
Yeah, so for anyone who's interested in accessing the slide deck or a recording or any additional documents that are referenced today, we will be posting the recording on the city's YouTube channel, as well as it'll be aired on KPAS. All of these quick links will be made available by end of day at the City of Pasadena website on our business page for COVID-19. And we will share these links through our newsletter. And if you're not a current subscriber, you can subscribe to our newsletter through the city's website.
So I'll try and take a couple more questions. I know we've reached our hour point, and again, we're always available for additional questions. We will post those contacts as part of what Michelle just mentioned. So maybe 2 or 3 more, Michelle.
Somebody's asking, are there any changes to the Safer at Home order for the City of Pasadena?
A new order is coming out today, and the new order allows for the reopening of the businesses that we mentioned earlier. So the dog groomers and boarders, the car washes, and curbside retail. But as far as the order for people to remain at home because it's safer for you to remain at home and not to gather with anyone outside of your household, that is the same.
So I have a few questions from hoteliers. They're asking, is it mandatory to give a plexiglass covering for the front desk agents?
We haven't ordered it, but I think that it's a really good idea. We're requiring it at every counter where goods are exchanged at this time in our retailers.
Similarly, they want to know if they need to fill out any sort of social distancing protocol checklists, have that posted on their site.
At this time, there is not one for hotels.
Right. One other question we have, how do people submit their social distancing protocol?
Great question. We've had a few emailed over to the health department. Businesses need to fill them out. You need to make sure every one of your employees gets a copy of the filled out document and that it's posted at your entrance. If you do that, you can reopen if you're closed, or you can resume business. We don't need a copy. We don't need to review it before you can open. If there is a question about the operation, or if we have to come and visit you and say hi, we're going to ask for a copy at that time. But in general, they don't need to be submitted to our department.
Thank you, Rachel.
We have a couple DOT questions coming in. One is, would a restaurant driver be able to park in the 20-minute curb space longer as they wait for orders to be available for delivery?
We've been working with parking enforcement, and their intent is not to cite unless a vehicle is not in the loading process. So if there is a pickup driver that is picking up from one of the food delivery services at a restaurant, and they're there for more than 20 minutes, and they are still waiting for the order, they will not be cited. The intent is to get that turnover, but if that vehicle is there for, say, an hour and there's nobody inside, or even for over 30 minutes and there's nobody in sight, then they may be cited for being in that 20-minute zone.
We have another question for DOT. Where can employees park for free, especially now that their hours are reduced and not much income is coming in? It's already hard to get employees to work.
A lot of that depends on the location of the business, if they have off-site parking, or if there's less restrictions on the street. There are no specific garages per se, other than the initial 20-minute limit for pickup that is opened to free parking. We'll have to look into that, but for the most part, it's working with the employer to see if there are any available locations for off-site parking. The other concern is we don't want employees filling up residential neighborhoods as well and impacting those neighborhoods. So there is a balance to that parking.
Thank you. So this is a question probably for Public Works and Planning. Who can we call if we have issues managing the sidewalk for overcrowding?
David, do you have that answer?
Yeah, I mean, I think that'd be really generally a code compliance issue, and I'll put up that number or ask Michelle Garrett to read the CSC hotline. In practical sense, the code enforcement staff, as they look to sort of the challenge of the reopening of all retail to curbside, they're really looking at three things. Is there physical distance happening on the sidewalks? Is it a type of business that's allowed to be open? And then making sure that patrons aren't actually physically entering. Beyond that, we are reactive, and there is the CSC number. Michelle, if you could provide that maybe in the Q&A, that would be helpful.
Thank you, David.
And that CSC number is 744-7311. And that'll be included in the follow-up digest. So another question has come in asking about extension of payment of business licenses and health permits. While we don't have our finance department with us today, I will share that they have extended all renewals through the end of June, and we'll reevaluate that down the road as we get closer to those deadlines. The health department, do you have anything to share on that note?
Sure. So we recently sent out the renewal notices for our restaurants. Most of them expire May 31st. And some of the changes that we made were, one, we're not charging penalty fees for late payments. Nobody needs to do anything to request that. It's automatic across the board. The other thing we're doing is that if anybody needs an extension due to a hardship due to coronavirus, they can call our main office number, and it's on this information was all provided with the bill, and they can talk to one of our staff and they can let us know who they are and that they would like an extension, and we're granting an extension up to 6 months. So in effect, the new due date is December 1st.
Thank you, Rachel. For DOT, what will the employee parking policy be in city parking lots?
Currently, our city parking lots are not being enforced from the metering standpoint, so they're free parking. I will double check with our parking enforcement office to see what the time restriction limits are there. Again, it's a balance between getting employees to park and getting patrons or customers a place to park where there may not be on-street parking. The city lots often provide a location where they can park to go pick up their merchandise or their food in general proximity to the restaurants or the retail. So I will prepare an answer for that for the as part of the package that's going out to the public.
And then Michelle, I'm sorry, and I'm reminded that you can always call 311, the city's 311, to report any violation, and it'll get back to us.
We have a question for economic development. Was there any progress made for the small business grants discussed this week at City Council?
So we've followed up with conversations with the Chamber of Commerce and the local community foundation, and it's something that council will be considering very, very soon. So it's something that we realize is an important local support item to consider, and there'll be more on that soon.
A question for health. So restaurants that have currently been offering pickup and takeout and delivery, Are they required to post and fill out the social distancing forms?
They are, and that was actually effective a few weeks ago. So every restaurant right now that is open and operating should have already done that.
Another question for health. So this person's company has requested that they keep written documentation and tracking of team members' temperatures. Is this acceptable based on the city's comments at the start of the presentation?
We are not mandating that the employer take the employees' temperatures. Every employer is approaching the health screenings from a different perspective and using a different method. It's acceptable for the employer to just verbally ask the employee to report every day any symptoms of illness. Taking the temperature, some employers, like I said, are having the employees take their temperature themselves at home. And taking temperature is, I guess, an extra protective measure. I would say that's like a gold standard, but it's not a requirement.
Thank you. This question is perhaps a combined response from health, planning, and economic development. Can you explain how a Walmart-type clothing department store is open with people moving through the aisles, but a clothing store that only sells clothing is closed?
Oh, that's been a challenge and something we've been stuck in. So I think locally we wish that weren't the case, but it seems like that line that Rachel referenced before that the state designated is something that we're having to live with. So I'm not sure if there's a better answer to that.
No, I don't. That is the answer.
Thank you. This person has heard the recent announcement that restrictions might be in place until the end of July. How does that affect Pasadena?
I can answer that because I think that was something that Dr. Ferrer said during a Board of Supervisors meeting this week when she mentioned that the Safer and Home Order will be in effect for 3 more months. And she provided clarification yesterday that we are continuing through the reopening process. That is not on pause for 3 months. What she was trying to communicate was that every stage of reopening, we're still under the Safer at Home Order, meaning even though businesses are slowly reopening, it is still safer for you to remain at home than to go out and to gather with other people.
So we do have one other question here. Is there any thought to rolling back minimum wage?
So I'll answer that. So the Pasadena, LA County, City of LA have a minimum wage that is different than the state of California for a little bit longer. It's going to merge into the same rate. And we do very much understand the interest from the business community to reconsider that. But at this point, there's not been any real consideration on that adjustment at the local level.
There are a lot of similar questions that we've already answered, so I think we can slide.
So again, we very much appreciate everyone's participation. We want to maintain this dialogue. We'll be having additional webinars in the weeks to come as updates are flowing to the city. We want to make sure we give a shout out to the need for people to participate in the census is something that is very important for the local community to be counted. So from a personal standpoint, from the business ownership to the employees, we encourage everyone to take a moment and make sure that they have completed their census information. So with that, we'll again, thank everybody. We will be posting this information on the city's website. cityofpasadena.net is a great resource for a wide range of local activity. And from there, you can go to the business webpage and a variety of other sites, including the health department. So again, we wish everyone the best. We hope that we have additional news for the economy opening up very soon. But again, for now, the situation is how we presented it today. And thank you very much.